Hello everyone, welcome to the channel one more time. Thank you for joining us. Today we are with Patsy. She is from England. Hello Patsy.
Hi.
And she will be sharing with us life experience, thoughts and feelings, as always, as you know. How old are you, Patsy?
I am 68 and I will be 69 in October this year. Yeah.
How was your childhood?
I think if you ask me on some days I'll say it was wonderful,
Mm-hmm.
and on other days I might say it was not so good. So sometimes I think the memory of it is quite affected by time and me
Yes.
and my moods. I think I was quite a happy child. I remember being happy. I remember having some nice experiences.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have a lot of money,
Mm-hmm.
and I was the oldest of three, and I would say up until my teen years, I felt like I had a happy childhood, and I felt like I always defined myself as having a happy childhood.
And when those memories, the, let's say, no very good ones, they come to you, could you share some of them, or
A lot.
or how you?
Yeah, a lot of them I will always think about two people in my family, and that'll be my mother and my middle sister, and I seem to have most conflict with them in my mind. I might be wrong, they may have had conflict with me, but I felt my mother was never satisfied with me. I felt whatever I did was wrong, and I think I kept trying to be the good girl. I can remember that was in my head, was if I'm good, because I was brought up in a very religious Catholic thing. So my thing was to try to be good in my head. It probably wasn't good at all. But in my head I was thinking if I'm good, and I put a lot of that down to doing what my mum would appreciate, like doing housework and helping with things. And I was expected to look after my sisters. So I had lots of responsibility but no authority. And my middle sister did not like me being in charge. So we had a lot of conflict and things. And I think my middle sister had a hard time, to be honest. I found out when I was an adult, I saw a picture of my little sister when she was 2, and she looked distressed, this middle sister, and she looked really upset, and I was like, oh, my sister looks really upset, to my mum, when I was with my mum looking through photographs, and she said, oh, that was the 2 weeks, she was like that for the whole 2 weeks, and I was like, what 2 weeks? And my father had taken me to Ireland for a holiday when I was about 4 and she was 2, but they told her that we were going for ice cream. So they lied to a 2-year-old or 3-year-old, I'm not sure. I know I wasn't at school, but I was nearly 6 when I went to school, so I'd have been between 4 and 5, I think. And I remember the holiday, but I didn't know why my mum and my sister didn't come. So it was very odd. But I think my sister suffered a trauma then, because I was her person. Apparently me and her were very, very close. So, and I think when I came back, she was probably very angry with me. But I was a child and I wouldn't have known that. She wouldn't have known that. But my mum and my family, because I've spoken to my younger sister about this, that I think that my middle sister's always had this anger, and she was like, oh no, you're just making too much of it. So there you go. But I don't know. But the conflict was quite intense at times, and
And now, how is your relationship with her?
I don't have a relationship with her or my other sister,
Okay.
and that relationship broke down after my mother died. So
Okay.
yeah.
What did you learn from your childhood?
What did I learn? I don't know. It's hard to put that into words because I suppose your childhood makes you everything that you are, really, doesn't it? And I think fairness, and a lot. I was told one thing in school and from Catholicism, and then I saw something else when I went to church, or if I listened to my mum and dad at times. So I was the person who would want to look after the homeless people, and my dad, I can remember my dad saying, she would have a homeless person sit in the house, and I was like, well, why wouldn't you? And because I just didn't understand what their concerns around a homeless person might be. And so I was very, I was very in love with the Catholic faith. I was very in love with Jesus Christ, with Mary, all that sort of thing. But as I grew older, I started to really question it. I used to question women's place in the Bible and how women were treated, and that just became more and more as I got older and into my teens. And at senior school, there was a lot of propaganda that was anti-abortion that was taught to us, and I sucked it all up. But there were times when I would say, what about such and such? And the answers were never good enough. I would give examples of, like, what if this happened to a woman? What if this happened to a young girl? And the answers were never good enough to me to explain why would you have a blanket ban against abortion.
So when you were a child, you developed to analyze, or that's the point that you learned when you were a child,
yeah.
to what's going on here, what's going to questions.
And I think a lot of what I did learn about relationships and within the family, I don't know whether they were positive or negative, because my family has imploded basically after mother's death, and I think my coping mechanisms probably weren't very good. I would keep things in and then I would explode, and especially I think as a teenager I did, and I would have lots of depression and things like that. So which just as I've got older, I've obviously developed different mechanisms coping with.
Mm-hmm. How was your adolescence?
Awful.
Okay.
Awful. Hated it. Mm-hmm. Hated my body changing. Mm-hmm. I was quite interested in the fact that I was growing breasts. I can remember that when I was about 12. Mm-hmm. But then when it all actually happened, I didn't like the attention I was getting. Mm-hmm. And I didn't understand what was happening. I had no sex education at all. Mm-hmm. And it was, I didn't know what was happening with boys and girls. I went to an all-girls senior school. I always had crushes on girls, and I didn't understand that either. I didn't understand what fancying somebody meant, fancying a boy meant. I was like, I don't know. I used to say that I did to my friends
Okay.
to fit in.
Mm-hmm.
You say, oh, he's nice, and sort of pretend you've got a bit of a crush on a boy and things like that. But actually, I was always interested in girls.
So you save it for you, internally.
Yeah. There was no
way to talk about.
I would not have spoken to anybody about it. Not anybody. Yeah. Okay. Not even friends. Yeah.
What did you learn So in this stage in your adolescence.
Well, it's I don't know what I sometimes think. What did I learn? I think I was quite thick actually. I was quite dense. I think all I learned was schoolwork really. I think I was experiencing things. I don't think I was processing what I was experiencing. I wasn't putting it in any sort of order. It wasn't making any sense to me. I started to reject a lot of, like my teen years, early teens, I loved going to discos and dancing, and I liked soul music and I liked Hammer Motown. I hung around with people who would describe themselves as skinheads or suede heads, and went through all those I don't know if you know all about those, and that sort of fashion that was sort of associated with reggae music and things. But I didn't like the values, and I certainly didn't like there was an element of racism and this sort of anti-immigrant stance associated with those groups, and I started to really question that. I didn't like it. And then we went to Ireland for my cousin's wedding when I was about 16, and I came back and I was like a hippie. I don't know what happened, but it was like, I'm not gonna wear those clothes anymore. I don't want to wear those clothes. And I was sort of, my mum liked us to look smart. That was her thing, and it was like, you need to look smart. You need to wear that navy dress, that navy crimpling dress that is so lovely. And I really didn't want to. And she was very critical of how I looked anyway, whatever I wore. So it was sort of like, I might as well do what I want to do.
Can you notice where all those criticism coming from your mom affect you in your life? In what part? As an adult, as a mom, as a...
I think my self-esteem was very low when I was a teenager, and I think I would oscillate from being quite arrogant and trying to mask it by, I'm great, and everything's great, and to absolute depression and thinking I was, really, the worst person in the world. So it was quite egocentric. It was sort of very teenage, I suppose. It's like, you're growing up, everything's in your head, isn't it? And nothing makes sense, I don't think. And you're starting to pick what's important to you, and you're starting to form your values. And I think my mum and dad had very good values in terms of honesty, working hard for your, and
that's my next question.
Yeah.
How was your relationship with your mom? How was your relationship
It
with
was
your mom?
difficult. It was difficult. I felt she didn't love me. I felt she was critical of me. I knew she loved me because she always talked about family first, but it was like she didn't like me. I was a big disappointment. She loved my youngest sister, and that was obvious. My relationship with my dad was very strong until I came out as a lesbian, but it was very strong and it was very close. Did you ask your
mom why that behavior with you, and you didn't?
You couldn't have that sort of conversation.
I can understand. Yeah. I understand.
I mean, I did, and the one thing is, my mum did develop as she got older, and as I was an adult, and before she died, we definitely made our peace, and we talked quite a lot through, and I definitely felt a lot more love and affection from her and for her before she died, which was good.
How do you feel after you talk about all these things with your mom, how you feel like you finally
I feel
throw a rope from
I feel
your...
sad. I feel sad that my mum was quite, she was a divide and rule mum. She made mistakes, but she came from a very poor background. She was one of 13. I think she was expected to look after children from the age of 5 probably. She was looking after her younger siblings. She was, I think, very anxious about herself. I think she had low self-esteem. Looking back now, but she was in charge of me. She was my boss, wasn't she?
Yeah.
She was in charge. She was actually the boss of the whole family, really, when I look back. But yeah, she was the matriarch, and I think it's just sad that she didn't have the education, you know, and I don't think she did anything to hurt us, but it did hurt us, but she thought she was doing it for our good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she did really hurt me and my middle sister quite a lot, but she didn't mean to, if that makes sense.
Yes, that makes sense. Yeah, makes sense. It's sometimes parents in the believing that they are doing the best. It's not the best sometimes. What did you learn from your mom?
Not to tell her things, actually. I kept
lying.
a lot.
Lying.
Oh,
It's good.
it's
okay.
I was very. I just kept things back from my mum because she was critical. She was so critical. She could be critical of members of her family about any sort of trait or how they dressed or what they did or what they earned or what. But it didn't mean she didn't love them. She just felt like she was being honest. And I must say, I had that ability to be very direct and honest, and still have. And it's not always the best way, but it's taken me a long time to learn that. So I don't know whether I learned that's how you were supposed to be, but it wasn't quite right. I didn't interpret it quite right. I feel like I'm not making sense at all.
No, yes, of course you are doing. You are doing great.
I was a child
don't
a
worry.
long time ago.
The relationship with your dad was strong. You were saying.
I felt it was. I felt great love between me and my dad, and I would love to just sit in a room with my dad, and we wouldn't talk, but I felt like we were together. I don't know.
Very connected.
Yes. And it would be almost like a telepathic sort of like connection with him. I felt very secure with him. An example of how I felt about my dad and my dad loving me was I had a very bad accident when I was about 7, and when I came home, I had a fractured skull, and was in hospital for 4 days. Now my mum came every day, she looked after me, but what I remember about the accident, I don't know what happened for quite a while, waking up in my dad's arms, and he had me in a car and was taking me to the hospital, and then I blacked out again, and then I remember seeing his face again in a lift in the hospital. And then my mum came every day, and I can remember being distraught because my mum didn't come the time I thought she was coming on the last day, because I got used to her coming at a certain time. So I must have had a lot of security from my mum and dad. So they gave me that sense of security. But when I was at home, I was sleeping a lot, I think. I can remember waking up in the living room and my dad was crying, and my mum was really angry with him, saying, "Don't cry, you'll frighten her." And I was trying to sort of say, "No, I know he loves me because he's crying." But she was like, "No, you don't cry. You don't show that weakness or that worry Whereas I interpreted that as he loved me and she didn't love me quite so much as a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old. But I never said anything. I didn't say things. So, and when I think about my son and about my grandson, they say things, and I'm really pleased that they do. I think my son probably didn't say so much, but my grandson says it all.
Oh, everything.
Which is fantastic. Yes, and he talks really well. His mum and dad have, they've done a great job, and he talks about everything. He talks about his feelings, which is good.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think we were told to repress our feelings.
What did you learn from your dad?
To kindness, I would say, tolerance of people and people being different, whereas my mum was the opposite. Mm-hmm. They were like chalk and cheese in lots of ways. One of the things my dad taught me, but I don't agree with him now, is that you should never, if anybody falls out with you, you should do everything you can to try and repair that friendship. And so if I had relationships or friendships or anything, and it was getting fractious or it was breaking off, I would do anything I would approach the person and say, shall we talk about this, shall we try and make it better? So I would do that, and I actually think that wasn't the right thing, because it was sort of like it was forcing my beliefs, and and it put me in a vulnerable position, I think, quite often.
Maybe your dad had that experience, and he was...
He did. Yeah. He had a bad experience where a friend rejected him because my dad couldn't lend him money. Now I would say my dad should not have fretted about that. He should have said, that person wanted me for my money, not for me. Whereas my dad couldn't understand it. He always said, don't fall out with people that are close friends. Okay.
So that was his way.
Yeah.
Did you get married?
I did.
Yeah. Was it a peaceful separation?
It was, well, it sort of was at the time, but then it became quite. I met this young boy. I don't know. He was a year younger than me, and I was 19, so he was 18. And I became pregnant at 20, and I think I was at the point I became pregnant, I was thinking, this relationship's not working, it's not what I want. But once he knew I was pregnant, he was like, we're getting married, whereas I didn't automatically think we would get married. And then I was like, he was insisting on it, and I was thinking, and I knew that I was probably a lesbian, or I might be a lesbian. I was trying not to be a lesbian, and that was my, I was really scared about it, and scared about my Catholicism. I was at a teacher training college for Catholic teachers. It was like, it was all like, So I was like, well, if I just get married and have a baby, most women seem to just put the family in front of themselves, so I'll probably just do that then. Oh no, I couldn't do that. I had too much ego. I couldn't suppress myself enough, and within a year I was like, this is a big mistake. I was very depressed. And he was very unkind. He wasn't understanding. It was very difficult. He was a difficult person, quite brutal at times in what he would say. It was quite harsh, and he did hit me twice. So I was like, I knew I was in trouble, and I went through a period where I was suicidal, really. And it was my middle sister who actually helped me at that point. And she was like, I wouldn't let any man do that to me. she was like, you need to leave him, and like, so you know, she was a good sister at times. She was a very good sister at times. So I did sort of say, what I did was I used to go out. I gradually started going out every weekend with my sisters when my son was a bit older, and my mum and dad would have my. So I would go over to see my mum and dad, leave my son with them, went out with my sisters, came back with my sisters. So it was like I was living at my mum and dad's at the weekends, and I was only there at the house that we were living at with his dad. We lived at his dad's during the week. So I did that for about a month. And then I just sort of said, I'm not coming back. And he accepted it.
Okay. How long did
he
relationship?
said, that's all right, because I think I need a break. He needs a break. And when I said, when do you want to see your son? He said, I think I need a bit of a break. I need a rest. I was like, okay. Yeah.
So he stopped seeing his son.
He said he needed a break, and I was like, oh, all right. I couldn't understand why he needed a rest from him, like his son. And then he was like, well, I won't have to. And then, he was like, I won't have to pay anything. I won't have to pay any maintenance. So he gave up his job so he wouldn't have to pay maintenance. So I was like, okay. Now at the time I could get a single parent allowance, and it didn't matter whether he paid me, the state paid me, and then they would take the money off him. So for my maintenance payments. So that's how it used to work, and he never paid anything anyway.
What did you learn from this experience?
To be very careful around men. I learned how to be independent. I managed to get a flat. I managed to decorate that flat. I managed to finances. I managed to look after my son. I started to understand how the world worked, and understand politics. Margaret Thatcher came into power the year after Robert was born. She had a huge effect on my life, that political thing. I met a woman and had a relationship with a woman who was very involved in setting up a rape crisis centre, so I helped her. It was the first rape crisis centre in Coventry. I was part of the group of women who set that up, became very involved in women's rights and feminism at that time. So it was like a complete rejection of the patriarchy, really. It was starting to get like that. So I changed a lot because of I learnt a lot of negative things, and then it started to become positive. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. Do you think all men are people need to be careful with all men? Because you were saying I learned to be careful about men.
Yeah.
Do you think all men?
I think all men, until you know them, are potentially rapists, potentially dangerous. Yeah, it's a very negative view of the world. I think that's the social media and the use of online websites is making that even worse, because I think the politics between men and women seems to be getting polarised. It's getting further apart, not coming together. But then you get wonderful men. Absolutely, I've met some wonderful men and wonderful allies to women. So it's like there is such a sort of what do I mean? Like a tension between how men view women and can be towards women. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think my son's an ally, and I've met some great men in Hebden Bridge who are allies to women, and I count them as good friends now. Yeah.
Great.
So there's a sort of a political view which I don't back away from, because if you're walking down the street, you do not know, if a man's walking towards you, you have no idea what that man's attitude is towards women. So, and it makes me scared of men, honest. So.
Yes. Yeah, thank you for being honest. What do you think a child needs?
Security, love, consistency, honesty, fun. They need that sense of belonging and being valued and listened to. And they need peace.
Yes, everyone.
We all need peace.
Your son, how you manage your feelings about your sexual profile?
My sexuality.
How you manage that? Did you
Probably
talk with
not.
him?
Oh yeah.
Or did you let him know?
Yes, he definitely
please,
knew that I was a lesbian, but he also knew that in a way we had to keep it secret from teachers, anybody in positions of power. And I did keep it a secret from, like, at work. I didn't come out. I didn't come out to my mum and dad. I didn't come out to my wider family. I would never come out to anybody like police or anybody like that, teachers, because when he was 2, there had been a judge who had given custody of a child who'd been sexually abused by her father to the father and his new girlfriend, simply because the mother was lesbian and living in a lesbian relationship. And the judge's thoughts on his ruling on it was, well, this child has the opportunity to live in a heterosexual normal family, which will be better for the child, even though the father had sexually abused the child, because the father won't do it now because he's got a wife. It was awful. So there was no way, because children were taken off lesbian couples simply because they were lesbians. So if a priest or a vicar or a teacher reported that the child was in a lesbian family, and also there was the clause 28, there was all the anti-gay movement was really high then. It was really strong, and we weren't classed as real family, and to be honest, I think what I realised is actually a lot of people didn't see that me and Robert were a real family, and that came out in quite hurtful sort of episodes in the family, and it came from my sisters, because I thought they supported me, but actually I think they thought I was odd. They did think I was odd. They did think that me and Robert weren't as valid or as valuable as their families. which I found really hurtful in the end.
So did you take distance? Did you take distance from your family because that reason? That was the reason. To take distance from your dad, from your sisters, from your family. From your
I
mom?
didn't realise that until my mum was dying. Actually, I didn't realise that my sisters had that attitude. But my mum and dad. My dad was very upset when he found out I was a lesbian, and it took him years to sort of like talk to me about it even. My mum, even 10 years after I'd been with a woman and like things, was sort of still trying to say, look, that man's interested in you, and I'd be like, but she would make me laugh when she said things like that. So I was like, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen, Mum. Yeah.
Do you feel your son? How he? Do you feel his support? His,
I did feel he supported me, and I do. I think he found it hard. I don't think he found it easy. I think he was really angry about it for quite a while. But I think I don't think he's proud of it, but I think he supports me, and he just accepts it. That was me. That is me. That is. But I haven't been in a relationship for over, 20 odd years, 25 years, 30 years. So it's not been an issue for him anyway.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's a good point.
I think, and I think he actually didn't like talking to me about relationships with women, because he was like, he probably thought, oh no, it'd be another drama, you know, and it would be a drama, and it would be, you know, all end in tears. So I learnt that lesson. So let that one go.
What does love mean to you?
Love. It's very different, isn't it? As you grow up, love is different things, isn't it? And it's like, it used to be sort of the love of family, and like that love between me and my dad was sort of a strong connection. Then there was love for my son, which is, you know what that's like, don't you? It's like, you know, that is the tightest. But then there's that passionate sort of love for another person, and the excitement and the butterflies in the stomach. There was all that sort of love. So but I think love now is sort of feeling contented and love for yourself. So I think I try and love myself a lot more than I ever used to, and the love for your animals, the love for your family, the love for your life, for your people, for your community. So I don't know what love is, but it's lots of things. But I think basically it's it's a positive thing. It's when you embrace, when you are able to embrace things around you, and have that warm generosity within you, and that feeling in you. So that's what love is to me, I think.
What does fear mean to you?
Fear is something I'm scared of.
You are scared of fear?
Yeah. It's anxiety, feeling like your security is ripped away from under your feet, fear of the unknown and the future, fear of, as I've got older, I'm fearing ill health, and I'm starting to fear not dying, but how I might die. That frightens me. Fear of upsetting my family, because I sort of feel like I can't trust myself. I seem to upset people, and that upsets me. that I might upset people. So fear of upsetting my friends and things like that. So I have those real, they're real sort of the fears you have when you're young. I've still got them now, but I feel like I'm better at sort of and more secure in myself to be able to not be so frightened of those things. But I think as I approach old age, I think my fears are sort of more to do with losing control, So I'm trying to keep myself strong, keep my mind active, keep healthy, and do my best to do that. Yeah. So we all have different fears, I think, at different times, and then we have core fears that probably never really go away, but you get better at coping with them. I think.
What does forgiveness mean to you?
Forgiveness is when you can actually really forgive the person. It used to be you needed to understand, to me, you needed to understand why somebody had done something, but I don't think you can always understand it. And I think forgiveness is to do with being able to just let it go, really. Let it go. Be neutral about it. And I don't know whether you can stop the hurt of whatever it is that's happened.
Have you forgive someone through your life?
Yeah, I think I have. I think I have forgiven people. I find it hard to forget the hurt, though. They say forgive and forget. I don't think I can forget the hurt. I can forgive, but I don't think I can forget. And I think you do need to do both. Sometimes you need to do both. But sometimes I think I've forgiven. I think you have to forgive yourself as well. And maybe, like the whole thing with my sisters, I know I did wrong, but and they did wrong, and it was like it wasn't all one-sided. But I'm upset that they've never accepted my offer to sit and talk and try and get through it, and that's made me sad. But I actually don't really. I don't hate them for it, or I don't. At times I feel bitter though, and then other times I don't. So I don't know how I feel about it really. But I'd say that's the biggest hurt in my life, is falling out with my sisters. And I don't think it's going to get better. But I think within myself, I need to forgive both of them. I think I forgive one of them. I'm not sure about the other one.
Little by little. It's a process.
Yeah,
no?
It is a process. Yeah, you're right. It is a process.
Can you say, please, 3 things you are grateful for, that you are grateful for in life?
I'm grateful for my son. I think my life's so much better for having a child. I'm grateful for my career as a nurse. I think that gave me so much in terms of financial stability. It didn't always give me a lot of money, but it gave me financial stability, and it gave me the ability to build a home for me and my son. And I'm grateful for my family, my daughter-in-law, my grandson, my dog, their dog, although he's very annoying sometimes. But my family, the things I am most grateful for, and security. I feel like, and I think my years in the NHS have given me security and understanding of people and society, and given me skills which I try and use even now. Yeah. So those are the three things that come to mind now. If you ask me tomorrow,
Maybe I will change it.
I might be grateful for something else.
Yeah. Yes,
but those are the three things at the moment.
After I ask you this, could you answer the soonest possible, please? The soonest possible. Can you mention three people, three persons, that you love more? You love, completely love in this life, please. The first one,
Robert.
the second one,
Claire.
the third one,
Jack.
Okay, thank you very much. The last one. Can you explain your diet? What kind of diet do you have?
Oh gosh, I'm trying to eat less ultra processed foods. I'm vegetarian, but I eat dairy, and I'm pescatarian. I don't eat meat, basically. I'm not a meat eater, that's the best way to describe it. I can't eat meat at all now. I try to cook from scratch most days, and I'm trying really hard to just be a bit more healthy. Been reading a lot about microbiomes and the link between your gut and inflammation and mood and things like that. I think it's really interesting. So that's my diet.
Okay. Thank you very much for this lovely interview. Thank you for your open for explain your all your life experience and thoughts and feelings. Thank you very much, and hope everyone can have something from this interview. Take please whatever you need, and please carry on, and see you in the next interview. Thank you. Bye bye.